All right. So thank you for being here today. So I'm Karla Batres. I am in the Department of Psychology at John Jay College and my credentials. It's not that I'm formally trained in teaching online, though I have taken a lot of workshops, done a lot of professional development around online teaching, but it's more that I have been teaching online for a good 8 to 9 years. So even before the pandemic, I was developing online courses and teaching both asynchronously and synchronously. Now, my favorite way to teach online is synchronous. I teach research methods every semester in a synchronous format, and it always goes really, really well. I have had students tell me that they enjoy it, that they find it just as interactive as an in-person course, if not more, right? So I think that a lot of the time we struggle with engagement, right, in our online courses, both synchronous and asynchronous. And I think that with some simple additions, it's possible to increase that interactivity that we're all looking for. Because we know that with higher engagement, students are going to learn more, right? And so I'm going to give you some strategies and I'm going to demo some tools. So for those of you that just joined, if you could join me in Pear Deck, I put the link into the chat. So usually I would have everyone introduce themselves, but because we're short on time, instead, what I'm going to ask you to do is to choose on the poll uh, on a scale of 9 how you're feeling today. So for those that just joined, if you could click the link and join me on Pear Deck, and we're currently telling everybody how we're feeling today on a scale of 9. Okay, so let's see how we're doing today. So it seems like uh, we have we have a pretty good breakdown between 3, 4, 5, 7, and 8. So you can see how people are feeling. Now, I'll tell you that this is something that I usually do at the beginning of all my synchronous classes because I feel like when we're in person, right, it's easy to tell what the mood of a room is, right? You can see if the students are engaged, you can see the energy that they're coming in with. But when you're online, particularly if you have a lot of students that don't turn their cameras off, it can be really difficult to tell, right? And so this a lot of the time helps me just get a quick snapshot of how people are doing. So what I'm going to ask you to do right now is in Pear Deck, I want you to tell me what are some of the challenges that you face when trying to engage students in an online classroom? I can see people are still joining. I put the link to the presentation into the chat. You can just click the link and join us. I'm going to give you a few minutes to answer this question. All right, so let's take a look. Does anyone want to share? So I see sorry. I see Joanne, so you're saying that having them engage in the actual discussions can be kind of difficult, right? So having them actually interact
Yes,
with each
see,
other?
my name is Professor McLean, and I like you in my classrooms in person and online. I like a lot of interaction and
Right.
discussions. So I kind of utilize discussions a lot to get them motivated to share thoughts and opinions. And then also I have them reflect on what another one or two students are saying and comment back on that. Some are very good, some take a lot of time and effort, but I think from my perspective, a lot of students have a lot on their plate, working two and three jobs and going to school, and a lot of them are just very quick and brief.
Yes, absolutely. That's true. I also like a lot of interaction in my online classes. I grade them on their engagement, actually. Um, and it's true, right? Like I think that that is one of the best ways to actually create a very dynamic learning environment, right? But it can be a challenge because students do have a lot on their plates. And I can see that some of the other challenges are having them do things like complete assignments, watch videos, and take notes at home. Yes, absolutely. Oh, this is a great one. So participating with thoughtful responses. Has anyone else seen an increase in the use of AI in discussion boards? Like now they're just using AI to both write their discussions and also to respond to each other, or is that just me? Am I the only one that's having that problem?
I
Suspect.
can say that the writing has just gotten more, like in some ways, beautiful, right? And so I was like, this is unusual, especially reflection assignments that I give out.
It's hard, right? It's hard. Yeah. And so I actually have shifted how I do the discussion boards, and I'll share that too. Yes, limited verbal and non-verbal feedback, right? Especially if they have cameras off, you can't see their faces, and breakout rooms can absolutely be chaotic. And so there does need to be a little bit of structure there, right? Momentum, that is a great one. Absolutely. You can, and especially again, if you can't get that feedback, right? Oh, another one, balancing personalities. Listen, in person, we all have those students that tend to dominate, right? They raise their hand constantly. It can be the same in online classes, even if you're using chat, right? Because if the class is moving quickly, you're going to have those people that are more extroverted and quicker on their feet be doing the majority of the responding. And so one of the things I like to do is use platforms like Pear Deck because it, one, doesn't let students see each other's responses until I'm ready for people to share. And two, instead of just having it be something like, oh, if you have something to say, put it in chat, it's like this is a moment where you're now expected to respond, right? You have to have a contribution. And it gives students a little bit of time just to think about it, right? Like, what is it that I'm doing right now? So make them work in groups. So I'm imagining like actually have them do the work in groups, trying to find other ways that than discussions for students to communicate. That's a great one. Distractions, absolutely. Okay. So you can see that there's a variety of challenges. A lot of them have to do with the lack of presence, right? If you're not in the same room, a lot of this stuff is going to be more challenging. So how can we create that dynamic? Now, before I continue to demo some of my tools, one other thing I want to make clear here is that even though I am showing you the specific strategies and programs and tools that I use, this is not actually about pushing you to use the same tools, right? Rather, it's about having you think about where you have the opportunity to create genuine connection and to think more creatively about how that can happen, right? So again, I'm happy to talk through tools with anyone if you happen to have a question in the future, but this is not really about the specific tools, rather just the experience that I'm trying to give the students. Okay, so three ways that I boost interactivity in my online classes. And as I said, I tend to teach synchronously, but I do teach asynchronously as well. And I have used a combination of these. And so I saw that some of you were struggling with actually having students create thoughtful responses and complete work, right? And I think that one of the biggest things that I see is that if students don't feel like the work has a purpose, right? Like what they're doing is important, they are actually less likely to do it, right? And they're less likely to take it seriously. And so the key here, I think, to boosting interactivity is making sure that students feel heard, that they understand that everything that they do is important, right? Like you're not just giving them work to keep them busy or to create a grade. You're trying to actually create a learning opportunity for them. So it shouldn't feel like their work is going into the void. And unfortunately, the way that a lot of online classes are set up, it can feel like you have a one-way communication. Either it's the professor imparting knowledge on to the student, you're info dumping, right? And it's just going that way. Or the student is submitting an assignment, it's going off somewhere, it receives a grade, but they don't feel like they've actually gotten a natural interaction out of whatever feedback they're getting. So one thing I like to do is even when I am giving them lectures, right? For my asynchronous classes and for my synchronous classes, I like the conversation to be interactive. So yes, I am imparting knowledge, but I want to hear what they have to say about it. What are they thinking? Now, how do you do that? In a synchronous environment, it's kind of easy, right? You ask them something like Pear Deck, you give them a prompt, you ask them to type in the chat, you ask them to unmute. However, even in an asynchronous class, it's possible. So I use a platform called Loom, and I hope that the internet actually, okay, yeah, it takes you here, where when I record my lectures for students, right, this platform allows me to embed prompts at specific time points, right? So one, to make sure that they're actually watching through and that they're practicing concepts, right? But what I like about this is that they are able to comment and react to me and to each other. So it's almost like a social media kind of feel here, right? That I think creates a more interactive conversation that could be more engaging. And what I have found is that if I, at the end of the unit, right, I actually send out a message saying, hey, I took a look at all your comments and this is what I noticed, then it feels to the students like I am actually paying attention to what they have to say, right? And so what we're looking for here is not just having you send knowledge toward the student, but having places where they can actually talk back. And I'm not talking about a discussion board here, right? I'm talking about commenting on the actual content, having them practice in a visible way where you can give them feedback, right? Where you can correct them, just like you would in an in-person class, right? If a student raises their hand, they give you an example. If it's correct, you praise them. If it's not, you guide them. You have to be able to do that in an online environment too. So that's one tool. Um, I like group work, and I know that people have mixed opinions about this. Students, they struggle with it a lot, right? A lot of them do not like group work. But one thing I have found is that if I structure the group work really, really well, it is a more enjoyable experience for everyone. And so I teach synchronously my research method class. And one of the assignments here is that they have to develop a research proposal. So across the entire semester, they are reviewing literature, they're developing methodology, an analysis plan, writing a discussion, and they do it in pieces. And I actually have them work in groups. Now, synchronously, it's easier because I could put them in a breakout room and they work, but I have structured it so that there's a place where all the work is happening, right? And so it almost makes them more accountable, right? Like they have to have work here and I can keep an eye on it and everyone is on the same page because everyone knows where the work is at all times. And of course, I'll just say that I do have templates for things like group protocols where they actually talk through what is this group work going to look like? How do we prefer to communicate? What do we do if there's a conflict, right? Like I have them talk through that in the beginning because that way the expectations are clear, right, for everyone. And I have found that with giving them a structure like this, group work is so much more efficient. Now, I like the long-term structured group work because one, students have experience working with a variety of personalities over a period of time to produce an outcome of some kind, right? But I feel like, and I've had students tell me that they have made lifelong friends with people that they have met working in groups in my classes. It almost creates a built-in support system, right? Like if you're working with these people class after class, or if it's asynchronous over a long period of time, you get to know each other. If you have a question and you don't want to go to the professor, you go to one of your peers, right? And so you need to build the opportunity for them to get to know each other, right? That creates the interactivity. Now, sometimes I like to do it in the short term, right? So if I don't have a big project, sometimes in a class, if I want them to practice a concept, then I put them into the breakout rooms. And I know that I saw someone say that they find it can be kind of chaotic. Again, I think that if you provide a structure for it, it can be a better experience. So one of my favorite tools, and I know I said that I wasn't going to sell you on tools, but if there's one, if there's one tool, right, that you should use if you're not, it's Padlet. Absolutely love this tool. Oh my God, really? So two couples, so even a romance is happening, right? That's great. I love Padlet because you can structure it in so many different ways. It really lets you do a wide range of things. And so here's an example of a group activity that I embedded into one of my classes where we were talking about pseudoscience versus science, and I wanted them to be able to pick out the strategies that a lot of people use to sell them things, right? So that they can see through it. And so I told them, okay, why don't you create a fake health product for me and tell me how you would sell this using the techniques we just talked about. And this was an absolute favorite. Students loved it. And so what I'm saying here again is if you give them a platform where they can easily work on a single project in a way that's creative, you may see group work that is more interactive online. Any questions for me? I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you. Usually I'd be way more interactive, but I have you for a limited amount of time. So I just want to make sure that we're moving through. Any questions at this point? Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. So to give you the experience of working in a group on Padlet, I am going to put you into breakout rooms and have you work in a group on Padlet for a few minutes. So there is a link to the Padlet there. I'm going to put you into groups. And what I want you to do is to discuss the pros and cons of using technology like Pear Deck and Padlet to boost interactivity, because I'm telling you on all the positives, but we know that there are downsides, right? So what do you think some of the cons are? And then see if you can think of other ways to boost, to create opportunities for interactions. All right. So I know that wasn't enough time. This is more just, this is just to give you a taste, right, of what working in Padlet is like. And usually I have people in groups, but you can see that there's a lot of pros, right? A lot of interactivity. People say that it's intuitive and easy to use. Yes, a lot of the stuff is very intuitive. Like I know new technology can feel a little scary, right? Like, but I promise you, once you kind of get into it, it does feel easier. However, a con here is there can be kind of a learning curve, right? Especially if you're juggling between different platforms while you're presenting, right? I'm not going to lie, it can be a struggle. Things do go wrong, but I do think that the benefits far outweigh whatever the cons are, right? Yes, they can work synchronously. So Padlet, I use this asynchronously all the time. I just give students the link. All my discussion boards are actually on Padlet. I don't use the discussion boards in Brightspace, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Let me make sure I got all the questions here. Yes, I love the anonymity. It's not, I wouldn't say it's true interaction. It's more like pseudo interaction, but I will say it's probably more interactive than yeah, than what we see currently. Students do enjoy it a lot. All right. So the other thing that we want to aim for, and if you want to boost engagement, is that you have to make students feel less lonely. Learning online can be very isolating for students, especially if they're not coming to campus at all. They don't know anyone on campus. A lot of the students that choose online learning are doing so for a reason, right? Like I find that a lot of my students have a lot on their plate, as someone said at the beginning of class, right? They have jobs and families, or they live far, many reasons, and it can feel very isolating. So I work very hard to make sure that I am reaching all of my online students, because I do think they are just as deserving of having a connection as my in-person students, right? And so I have three big points here, right? The first is you have to build a social presence. Presence matters. You have to be visible, and you have to help the students be visible. And I know that for us, that may mean logging into the class every so often or just showing up. I think it has to be a little bit more than that, though, right? Like they have to actually be able to see you as a person, and specifically as a person that cares, right? You want to create touch points. So create opportunities for natural interaction. And so we talked a little bit about that already with the interactivity, right? Either the group work, the discussions, be create the opportunities, right? So students can have that natural back and forth. You want that conversation. Something that I think is big, creating support systems. So you want to be able to build a community that supports students and shows care. And I think that's true for all of our classes, not just the online, right? But okay. So here's one or two techniques that I use to create a very strong social presence. I know that for a lot of us, we have gotten used to talking to our students through email and text announcements. I think that if you want to build a social presence that is maybe not equivalent, but closer to what they would get in an in-person classroom, you need to leverage video and audio more than you're probably doing. So, for example, a lot of my student discussion boards are actually video based. So I'm not asking students to write, I'm asking students to record. So I give them a prompt, they record a video, and then they comment on each other. Again, giving it more of that social media feel, which is, again, I'm not saying it's equivalent to in-person interaction, but it is more engaging than text only discussions. The other benefit of this too is that it is harder for them to use AI, because then they would have to like either read off a script or memorize a script, and that can be easier to catch, right? So, and you can kind of tell, right, when students are being more natural, or if they, so it's, I have found that more genuine interactions when I'm asking people to record themselves, right? To show me their faces. Okay, now I have to tell you, that's not the only place I use video. So I do ask students to record themselves, but I also record myself, right? And I'm not just talking about lectures here. I'm talking about weekly uh, announcements. If I send out an announcement, sometimes what I will do is I will record myself giving a summary of what we just did and an overview of what's coming, because that way it's like me just being there, right? I give all feedback on written assignments through video. I record myself. So I'll screen share, I'll actually scroll through their papers and I'll talk through points, which I actually find is better for students because they actually understand what the feedback that I am giving them is, right? Again, more of that natural interaction. Do I run into any tech issues with the videos? I have to tell you, not so far, not really, not with the platforms I'm using. I mean, I guess if there was an outage of some kind, but I haven't really had a problem. I will also record myself giving assignment instructions. Do I give written guidelines? Absolutely, right? For accessibility reasons, I always give written instructions, but I also record myself talking through instructions for assignments because I think it builds a lot of that presence. So again, just as another little taste of how I would usually run this in an online synchronous class, if you are in Pear Deck, or you could do this in the chat if you're not in Pear Deck, right? Can you tell me what you think some of the benefits of video interactions are over text interactions? Monica, yes, I do. Either through Panopto, although I don't know if John Jay has that, but Loom is very easy to embed, incredibly easy. It's one of those tools where it allows you to just, either share a link or copy the embed code. I've never had a problem. Yeah, that's right. It's so I think that's what we're aiming for is a more present community. And I do think that you could build that online. I do.
Karla, can I ask you a question?
Yes. Hmm.
I'm so happy Maggie's on this call. I hope she's listening right now. Um, do you have are you paying? And this is a question because I'm on Fact Tech and I
I'm here,
promote
Monica.
this. Hey, I promote this. So this is something I definitely want to talk to you about. The technology, I want to say. Do you pay out of pocket for it, or are you using the free versions? What are you doing? Because I know I pay out of pocket.
That's a great question. And it's actually something that I was planning on talking about because that can be a con, right? Like if you have to pay out of pocket, nobody wants to be paying hundreds of dollars a year out of pocket. So here's my answer to that. The only one that I pay for is Padlet. And that's because I absolutely love it. I use it for almost everything. It has so many different structures. I'm I'm doing this oral history project with my intro class this semester. We're collaborating with a high school class. And so we're going to use that because it's an amazing tool. Loom, I love Loom because they actually give educators access to the full version for free. So all I had to do was fill out a form, and I hope they're still doing that. I haven't had to pay. And for other things, I use the free version. So I avoid paying as much as possible. That's my answer. Yeah.
Yeah, Maggie, the only reason I said that is because I think it's like a good thing for us to discuss at Fact Tech.
Yes, I
So,
agree, and I wanted to thank Karla for a great suggestion. I do teach graduate students GIS, map making, and geospatial analysis, and I do it both synchronous and asynchronous. And doing video-based reviews, I usually send long commentaries on their assignments, but doing it by video would allow me to manipulate the maps and highlight exactly what I'm talking about. So that is an absolutely great suggestion. Thank you so much.
No problem.
I
So
use AI in my classes, but I use free. I don't use anything that costs them money.
yeah, no, and none of these tools will ever cost the students any money. I don't even use paid textbooks because I'm all about the accessibility, right? Like, so no, nothing is ever going to cost the students. So let me see. I have a question. Do I have students turn their cameras on? Actually, no. I have maybe 1 to 2 students turn their cameras on, but I have to tell you, because of the tools I'm using, it feels very interactive. In fact, I've had comments from my peer observers that they're surprised by the amount of interaction, right? You just have to create it. The threatening to report, I don't know that they can actually do that. It is a normal request, right? If they have a problem with maybe showing their environment, that's easy solutions. They can use an avatar, right? But still record. They can aim the camera away from themselves. Like I think there's ways around talking through students exactly what their concerns are, right? Like if a student expresses a concern, I always talk to them about it. I'm like, okay, can you tell me what exactly about this is bothering you? Let's problem solve, right? Like how can we have you engage, but also make you comfortable? Yeah. All right, so what benefits do video interactions? Yes, the seeing of your face. I think the tone of voice, what you're saying here is so important. Things can be misinterpreted over text very easily, as we all know, right? Because you don't have tone. And so I think adding that aspect to it makes interactions better. And I say this as a psycholinguist, right? Like the tone of voice is important, as are facial expressions and gestures, right? Okay. Now, the create support system. Here's an important one. I don't know if this has ever happened to anyone. A student that was in your online class comes the semester after or a year after, and they're like, can you write me a letter of recommendation? And you're like, I don't know you at all because I had you in an online class. I don't even know what you look like, right? So I do think getting to know students in online environments is very important. So you could do that again through the video discussion boards. I think that's a great way to see their faces, to get to know them as people. But I have to tell you, I do things where I throw little fun things into a lot of my activities because I do want to get to know students as humans, as people, right? So here's an example. Again, Padlet, amazing. I had just gone through the long-term memory unit of my cognitive class, and I wanted them to talk about ways in which they currently study, what works and why it doesn't, and how they can improve it. But I also just had them, share a playlist that you use to study to, or share a picture of yourself studying. And this, I think, is more fun, more creative for the students. Just a little moment of human engagement before completing an academic assignment, right? Getting to know them as humans. And that way, if they do come a semester after or a year after, you will have an easier time connecting that student to what you know about them from class because you have actually taken time to get to know them, right? So I do think having those moments of humanity, right, as people, and I show them myself as a human, as a person, something other than a professor, because I do think it lends itself to creating a better community overall. Check in often, all right? Check in with your students. If students disappear from our in-person classes, right? If they stop attending, I think a lot of us naturally will send an email. Hey, I haven't seen you in class. What's happening? You have to do that online too, right? Like if somebody stops submitting assignments, if they stop posting, if you've noticed that the tone of their posting has shifted, right? Check in with them. Check in with them constantly. I do that often. Like I'll just send an email, be like, hey, I noticed X, Y, Z. No pressure. I just wanted to make sure that you're okay, or if I can support you in any way, getting back on track, right? Never about calling them out. Where's my assignment, right? Like not that, but more like concern, right? Concern and an offer of support. I actually do check-ins with my students every single class synchronously with the mood board at the beginning, but also exit tickets at the end. And I'll show you an example of that. Help students create peer support. That peer-to-peer support is so important because they will interact with each other in ways that they never would with us, right? And so one way I do this is I strongly encourage students to create their own WhatsApp groups or, whatever it is. And if they want me to, I facilitate that, right? I'm like, hey, who wants to take charge over the student only, right? I'm not in there, WhatsApp group. And then I can send out the email and people who want to join can join. But another way that you can do this is you can create a space like a specific forum in your discussion board where it's a place to socialize, right? Where they can talk to each other without the structure of an academic assignment. That's a possibility too. All right. So to end, okay, I'll show you how I do the check-ins. I always ask a question at the end of class, but I also tell students if there's anything you want me to know, if you're struggling with something, put it here because I will read it. But before I show you the exit ticket, one thing I want to say, going back to this idea of not sending things into the void, one way in which I make sure that students know that I read and see what they're telling me is I will, at the beginning of the next class, if there was a lot of people that asked a question about X, Y, Z, I'll say, hey, I saw on the exit tickets that people were confused about X, so I want to go over that again. Or if someone expresses a personal concern, then I reach out to that student, right? And say, I saw on the exit ticket that you said this, I just wanted to check in, right? So I love the use of exit tickets because it lets you see whether or not your students are understanding content, right? What they're taking away, and it gives them a place to check in with you. So to end for us, here's what I'm going to ask you to write. If you're in Pear Deck, please do so in Pear Deck. If not, you can do so in the chat. Are there any tools or strategies from today's workshop that you think may be helpful in your own online classroom? And are there any questions that you still have? And I'll give you a few minutes. If questions pop up, I will respond. Oh, Zabby, just because it's limited, what they can do, right? It's mostly text. I think that maybe they allow video responses, but Padlet allows all kinds of submissions. Students can upload documents, they can create links, they can share memes, they can share Spotify playlists, they can record discussions, they can do audio only. There's so much that they can do. It gives them so much variety in how they respond. And as the instructor, when you set it up, you actually have control over what types of responses they can give, right? And so I happen to like that a lot more than Brightspace. Plus, I don't like how in Brightspace you have to go in different forums like I don't like that, or it's like one big thread. I find that the social media likeness of Padlet is easier to navigate both for me and for the students. Yes. So the user editing, the videos. Yes, the more intentionality. I love that. Feel free to steal whatever. And I am serious. This is a serious offer. If anybody ever wants to talk through any technology, anything that you're doing, if you need help with setup, I am happy to help you. Okay. I'm not going to say that I'm an expert, but I am happy to help you because I really do think that this helps create better learning for all our students. Yes. Thank you guys so much for coming. I hope that you enjoy the lunch. I'm at home, so I will not be there, right? Um, but yeah, enjoy the rest of Faculty Development Day. Thank you.